Let me propose to you an experiment. How would you rate every hero's difficulty on a scale of 1 to 5? Now, let me make that experiment just a little bit more juicy. What if you asked each hero's main to rate themselves on a scale from 1 to 5? So that not only do we get an approximate scale of hero difficulty, but also find out just how delusional or perhaps misinformed each main is about their hero's difficulty. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a difficulty project started by whatamidoing342 on Reddit, who went to every single Overwatch main sub and asked them to rank their character's difficulty on a scale of 1 to 5, compile these results, and then put it on a bar graph. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of myth busting about where I think each hero's rating is. Now, one disclaimer here, there is no differentiation between skill floor and skill ceiling here, so it doesn't really specify whether a character is easy to pick up or hard to master, so we're going to have to find some sort of a balance between the two. Where do you think your character matches up in the list? Would you think your rating was accurate? Let me know what you guys think in the comments and enjoy the video. Okay, yeah, let's take a look here. I asked all of Overwatch's main subs to rank their characters' difficulty on a 1 to 5 scale. Here are the results. Overall, for the most part, I'm pleasantly surprised at how this turned out. It was really fun to read all the responses. I did not specify ranked. Anytime somebody mentioned the rank, the lowest one I saw platinum players voice themselves. The highest is from a few champions. I want to get a mixed bag. I didn't include casting Sojourn because I honestly forgot to put them on. Yeah, so I think the idea was like, this is irrelevant of skill ceiling, irrelevant of skill floor, irrelevant of rank. So I guess what you could do is you could kind of like do like a hybrid of like how difficult it is to pick up the character, how difficult it is to master the character, and kind of combine the two. So for a character like, I don't know, let's just pick a random one. Roadhog is a little tricky to pick up, but not as hard to master. So maybe you put him in more of like a moderate or pretty easy. Whereas a character like Ball is both hard to pick up and hard to master, so he definitely deserves to be at the top. You know what I'm saying? Interesting. Okay, so let's look at this. What do you guys think? Let's go for each one, and then we'll look at the responses here. My favorite response is in Junkrat mains, and the top comments convinced me that Junkrat is one of the best designed characters of the game now. Interesting. I see it's a really low skill floor. Well, we'll get to that when we get to Junkrat here. Okay, what do you guys think? So this is 1 to 5. Average rating, I don't know how many votes there were. I believe there were a lot. Like several thousand, I think. Moira 1.2. Do you guys agree with that? Feels right, yeah? Lowest skill floor, lowest skill ceiling compares to other characters in combination. Feels right. Feels right. Orisa being 1.8 does not feel right to me. So I'm actually going to ignore the objective ranking. I'm going to look at more of subjective ranking. In other words, in comparison to other characters. You get what I'm saying? I don't think Orisa should be the second lowest. I think Orisa's skill floor may be a little bit lower, but I think her skill ceiling is pretty high. I feel like you'd put Orisa above Torb, right? Above Mercy, right? For sure. Maybe even above Bastion. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know. Where do you guys think with Orisa? If you combine skill floor, skill ceiling. I think I'd put Orisa like maybe 5th or 6th from the bottom. I don't know what number I'd give her, but I think Orisa needs to go up in difficulty. I don't think she should be second from the bottom. Bottom 5 maybe, yeah, but if, again, we're combining skill floor and skill ceiling. Yeah, we're harder than Ramattra for sure. I think both skill floor and skill ceiling, I think she's probably harder than Ramattra. Well, maybe skill floor, maybe not, but definitely skill ceiling. Agreed, 100%. So I think Orisa's good. We'll give this a check mark. Torbjorn, yeah. Skill ceiling, definitely one of the lower characters of what you can do. So I would say definitely in the bottom 3 seems fair. Floor and ceiling, he's more aim reliant, so I don't know if I'd say at worst he's off by like 1 or 2 placements. So I'm not gonna be nitpicky. If it's off by like 1 or 2 placements, but if they're off by like 4 or 5 or more, then I'll talk about it. Oh, you know what's actually gonna be kind of interesting, chat? Okay, can we also give the context of this as well? This is not the average player's opinion. This is the hero main's opinion. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like Moira mains, Torbjorn mains are self-aware, where Orisa mains are maybe too hard on themselves. Because these are the main subreddit ranking themselves, right? So this will be really interesting. Oh boy. This makes this so much more socially fun. Obviously, like, I'm not saying my opinion's perfect here by any means. Reaper? Yeah. I don't know. Reaper may be a little underrated. I think his mobility gives him a lot more skill expression, even at the high skill ceiling wise, you know. I would say, maybe a teeny bit. Orisa probably feels easier than most tanks. Yeah, but again, it's like the skill ceiling, right? Like if you're one-tricking Orisa, there's gonna be a lot of situations where you gotta really cook. Yeah, so I'll do a baby arrow with Reaper, like a baby arrow. Like maybe he's off by like 3 or 4, but like not that much. But yeah, fair point about Orisa. We may come back and evaluate this again here. Yeah. And I think he's also moved in a good direction with like his teleport speed, dire triggers, offers more decisions with the character as well. You have to be much better mechanically than I think people give credit for as you move up through the rings. And I'm not even talking about like Grandmaster, I'm talking about like Diamond and stuff. Malga. Again, if we're talking skill floor and skill ceiling. We also have to keep in mind that this is coming from like an average plat player, right? That they're going to be a heavy bias towards skill floor with this list and less skill ceiling. Maybe I give him a little baby arrow like Reaper. Maybe a little baby arrow. It's a little bit bigger. Yeah, maybe a little baby arrow reflectively, you know? Malga mirrors are very brain dead. Yes, agreed. Well, I don't think Mercy players are that off. Maybe I'll be too nice. I mean, I'd say Mercy's definitely in the bottom 3. I would say Mercy's maybe a little down. I'd say a little down. Little down. It's also hard too because Mercy players aren't necessarily comparing. Like, okay, so I will say this: they're not comparing themselves to other characters. They're saying in a vacuum. You know, so it's also like it's maybe not as critical, but yeah, maybe a little overrated. I think Mercy doesn't really crack the top 3. I don't think Mercy is super hard to play competitively. No, I think every character to master is relatively hard, but I don't think Mercy is not harder than Orisa or Torb or Reaper or Malga, skill ceiling wise. Brigitte, wow, Brig mains, man, way too self-deprecatory. Skill ceiling of this character, even the skill floor of Brigitte, I think is much higher than people give them credit for. Brig is not easy. Even picking up the character nowadays is not easy. Much lower, at least 4 or 5 placements up. I don't think she breaks the top 15 by any means, but she's definitely a middling difficulty, I think. Definitely a middling difficulty, especially if you're one-tricking her, right? Especially if you want tricking her. I think a lot of it, you know, it's actually, we can sit here and conjecture too. I think the impression that Brig is a really easy character has been something that's been around for a long time, even self-imposed, right? Okay, Roadhog, what do you guys think? Seems okay. Seems close. Definitely not an easy character, skill floor, skill ceiling wise, but probably proportionally not one of the hardest. Maybe a little underrated, but I feel like we're handing out that prize maybe a little bit too much. Seems okay, maybe about okay for now. What do you guys think? Ash! Ash! What are you doing here? What is Ash doing here? Hello? Ash players, see a psychologist. You're worth so much more. Get up, girl. Poor Ash players, man. Ash is definitely like, if we're going to assign a random number value, like 3.5, man. You know, she's up there. She's definitely in the top half. Maybe the bottom of the top 3rd. The only easy part of Ash is Bob. Bob is by far like one of the most consistently easy to get value ultimates in the game, but everything else is fairly challenging. Bastion. I'm gonna be honest. I think a little overrated. I think Bastion is definitely more challenging than he used to be, for sure. But I think the one trick community here is maybe a little bit too full of themselves here. Just a little bit. I think bottom 4 or 5 for me. So it's off by several placements. So I think they overvalue themselves just a little bit. It's gotten better. I definitely think like some of the perks have helped out a lot with that, but I still am not going to put him. I still think he's a little bit overrated. Herloaf stares menacingly. I can take Herloaf. I can handle that guy. It's all right. Yeah, I think Bastion, Hog, like it feels wrong to put Bastion ahead of Hog. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he's hard to, like, let's put it this way. This is why we're not saying how hard it is to reach Grandmaster with these characters, because Bastion's probably way harder to reach Grandmaster than with some of these characters because of his balance problem. But from like a design perspective, to squeeze all the value out of the character, you know what I'm saying? So this is why we're not talking about like to rank up with necessarily. That's more of a how strong is the character. What do you guys think about Junkrat? Is he a little overrated? Is he even? I don't know, man. He seems maybe a tad overrated. I think again, you guys got to remember, we're not conflating how difficult it is to climb at the higher ranks. I know it's difficult because the character's major shortcomings, but there's only so much that you can do with him. I think he's probably okay. I'm gonna play the diplomat here and say, I can see arguments for both sides of it. We had a hard time when we did the skill ceiling thing too, because remember, we're doing the impossible. We're combining a skill floor and skill ceiling and finding like an average of the two. You know, skill floor is obviously quite easy. But even then, it's not as easy as it can be, you know? And skill ceiling is okay. It's not bad. We'll say it's okay for now. Maybe we'll reevaluate. Sigma. Bro. What? I mean, see, this is the problem I'm having. I feel like I'm putting too many up arrows, so somebody has to go down, you know? Somebody has to go down. But yeah, Sig needs to go up. Sig is pretty challenging. I don't think his skill floor is that low either. I think it's way too important to hit your primary fire, like you mechanically. He's very mechanically demanding for a new tank, more so than almost any other tank besides like maybe a Roadhog and a Wrecking Ball. And his skill ceiling scales really freaking well. So Sigma mains need to be more confident, man. Do you notice, okay, what's the difference between, what's the consistency between, I don't know where Ashe falls into this, but so it kind of breaks my narrative, you know. But Brig and Sig were both considered like oppressively broken, easy characters at some point in time. And honestly, even Orisa is still kind of considered that. So you kind of seem like these characters are a little bit undervalued by their communities, I think, in terms of their difficulty. Oh, that's true. That's true. More up arrows at the bottom, more down arrows at the top. That's true. Yep. Juno. I think Juno's probably okay. I think she's the hardest easy support, if that makes sense. We'll leave her okay for now. I think you can, I know that concept of like, you could just heal and farm your ult, but like you do have to use your speed ring intelligently. You do have to know how to rotate and create angles. Skill ceiling wise, definitely Juno near the bottom, but I don't think she's like as free value as some people think. Her ult's too easy for sure. I will say a little down. I'll say a little down. I'll say a little down. A little baby down. Freya. Dude, come on, man. Come on. This is the typical character's OP, so everyone overconflates it. This is the same thing we went through with Hazard. It's the same thing that we went to. What else did we go through with this? It's been a while. I think Kiriko had her moment with this as well as Sojourn. Freya is definitely way higher. Both skill floor and skill ceiling. She's completely overtuned, or was completely overtuned, but no. Let me explain why this is the case. I have two arguments for this. One, the fact that she was so incredibly bad in lower ranks for quite a long time, despite being wildly overtuned. Secondly, the difference between the best Freya and a solid Freya in professional Overwatch was so big. The first couple of weeks that she was out, team performance was all over the place because you'd have one player that grinded her and really got her, a professional player, like nailed her and just carried the lobby. Like the details and the wall gliding, like her, it's not just her impact, but the things that you could do with her if you were insanely good were so incredibly insane. It was like having a wrecking ball holding the server lobby, the hostage rather. And then you'd have like silver, gold, plat, bronze players fumbling around, can't win anything. So like her output was so variable off of her skill in both lower ranks and even at the professional level. Yeah, like your mileage will vary depending on who's playing the character. So yeah, Freya up. I don't know if I would put Mei big up. I think Mei is chronically underrated by people outside the Mei community, but I think that like again we're given the context of how many characters Mei would beat. I think she's okay. I would say maybe up by a little bit. Maybe up by a little bit, you know? Just a little bit. Yeah, I'd say I put Soldier down a little bit too. Yeah, agreed. Very, very basic kit. The most difficult aspect of Soldier is mid-fight rotations and mechanics. That's pretty much it. I find him to be fairly simple. He's undertuned. He's not very good, but yeah. Kiriko, all right, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I think Kiriko needs to go up. I think she's underrated in terms of how difficult it is to pick her up, and also outside of her ultimate, and also she's the difference between a good Kiriko and a great Kiriko at the highest level is just insane. Just insane. Insane the amount of value you can pull out of the character. Just a little bit higher. I think a little bit higher. Doesn't mean that all of her aspects are very well designed, right? Doesn't mean that I like her personality. Doesn't mean that you can't climb with her. I just think that she's, yeah. Her skill floor is pretty high because it demands mechanical performance. Because if you heal bot with other characters like Juno, Mercy, whatever, you're going to get more value. Yeah, people always underrate Kiriko a little bit because they don't like her. And keep in mind, this is the Kiriko community. And no offense, I probably think the Kiriko community probably doesn't play Kiriko correct. I think Kiriko and Mei are both chronically incorrectly played characters. No, healbot Kiriko doesn't work because isn't necessarily the fastest way to build ultimate either. Because if you heal, remember that your tank gives you less ult charge, and her ult isn't strong enough to compensate by the lack of space that you'll give up. Ramattra big down. Yep, Ramattra big down. Big down. Definitely overvalued. Not a big down, but a big down. He's in I'd say the bottom 5. Bottom 6 or 7, let's say, because I don't think he's as easy of a tank to pick up as something like, let's say, it's easier to pick up Bastion, Rhine, Juno, Mercy, those characters. Even Torb, probably easier to pick up. Moira, right? But he's just one tier above that. And I'm going to do the same probably with Rhine. Small drop, not a major drop, but skill floor, skill ceiling. I think he's pretty challenging to get value because he's not very strong. But I think that he's still probably in my bottom 10, 15. Zarya, I will say probably medium arrow down too. I don't know if I'd put her down as low as Ramattra. Certainly not. I'd put her like somewhere like here. You know what I'm saying? Because she's still very mechanically demanding when you compare her to like a Ramattra. And like the difference between a top level Zarya and a not top level Zarya is more noticeable than it is with a Ramattra. This seems so far so good. Thoughts, critiques? So our Freya's undervalued in difficulty because Sigma, Ashe, Brigitte, minor Malga, minor Reaper, minor Orisa. Mercy's slightly overrated. Bastion's slightly overrated. Juno slightly overrated. Mei obviously slightly underrated. Sorry. Soldier's slightly overrated. Ramattra, Reinhardt mains, and Zarya mains all overrating the difficulty of their character. Do you notice a pattern here? Okay, actually, no, I don't notice a pattern. Never mind. I don't know. Because I don't even think Zarya is a bad tank or Ramattra is a bad tank. So I was looking for a pattern of like, oh, Rhine mains feel victimized. Maybe there's just a different pattern for different characters. You can't see the Rhine Zarya because of my face? Okay, sorry. Here. There. I don't really notice a pattern here, to be honest with you guys. There's some consistently hated characters that are, the communities feel like they're browbeaten maybe a little bit. I think a character like Ramattra might give the appearance of having a complex kit when in reality it's not all that complicated. I don't know what changed with the stream, just improved dramatically. You're a funny feller. Seems to be countered heroes with easy kit seems to overrate themselves. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Is this the same tier list here? I think this is it. Yeah. I think. Okay, well, we keep going. We take our screenshot mentally, and we keep going. Okay. We forgot to do Cassidy and Sojourn, which were like 2.75. Let's just say Cassidy is probably properly rated. Sojourn maybe a little bit underrated, but she's overtuned, so we'll move on. We'll throw that out there. Okay. Zenyatta. Feels about even, I guess. Feels okay. Seems about okay. Pretty high skill floor. Decent skill ceiling, but certainly not in the top third. I'd say Zen's about the same. Zen feels about even. I think his skill floor is a challenging part for a lot of players. And yeah, I think that's what I'd say. Idiari? Okay, no, I'm not kidding. I mean, she definitely has a mechanical requirement for sure. But my goodness gracious, no. Literally nothing but a mechanical requirement. You know? That's it. One of the most simple characters in the game in terms of cooldown management and so on. So, yeah. EDRs definitely overrate their difficulty a little bit there. So, Diva? I don't know. Diva's tough. Diva in 66, I would definitely say would be higher than a 3.1. I mean, having a top-level Diva player with the terms of the multitasking in 66 was definitely, I'd say, in like the top 10 of difficult characters, maybe even the top 5. But Diva in 5v5 is a little bit more deathmatchy, a little bit more space control. Most of what you're matrixing is just kind of what's shooting at you. You don't really balance peeling. It's just more proactive aggression. So I know this is going to be a bit spicy, but I'm going to put Diva where she's at. I think. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. Like, 66 Diva, definitely higher. I'm not so convinced that 5v5 Diva's as complicated. It's hard to say, though. I understand the argument why, because she still has the same kit, but the way that the kit works, I'm just not so sure. Junker Queen. Seems fair. It's easy to look at Junker Queen and be like, oh, she's underrated, but I think it's just because she's been bad for so long. But I don't think she's super crazy difficult skill ceiling. She's just not very strong. Seems a little bit like the Zenyatta effect, right? Where it's like, it's easy to overrate them because they haven't been very good, you know, versus a lot of the brawl tanks. Like, you compare Junker Queen versus Orisa, yeah, I think Junker Queen's hard to play for sure. Floor and ceiling. But, yeah. Sem? I don't know, man. Sem's hard. Maybe a little down? Yeah, Brig was way underrated, Visor Daddy. Brig was like in the bottom 6 or 7. I think Brig, okay, here's my problem with Sim. I think Symmetra has the potential to be here or even higher, but right now, I don't know. I might say a little overrated. A little overrated. And yes, bad players definitely play Sim wrong. So I'm on the fence with this one. I would feel like I would move her down 1 or 2. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm stuck. I would say just a little down. Like, yeah, baby down. Baby down seems fair. Harder than what the population thinks, but I think the Symmetra mains probably overvalue their utility, at least in terms of its current execution. Like right now, how consistently you can do it. We're not as focused on the number, although we've kind of brought it in here and there. It's more about in relation to everything else. Venture's definitely overrated. Venture can be fairly easy to counter, but I think the skill floor, okay, so there's a reason why Venture's overrated is because I don't think they have a very accessible skill floor in comparison to some of the other DPS. They're a lot more eclectic. So I won't tank them too far down because obviously we're combining skill floor and skill ceiling. But I think Venture's skill ceiling is so low that I hesitate to put them this high. I would say medium down. It shouldn't be on this page, let's put it that way. Down at least 5 or 6 tiers. But the reason why that bias is probably there is because the average player is dealing more with the skill floor than they are with the skill ceiling. You get what I'm saying? So I think characters with more difficult skill floors are probably going to be a little bit overrated. Yeah, very difficult to pick up, like very weird, right? So unintuitive. So I think this is a understandable rating because this entire list is gonna have a heavy bias, I think, towards skill floor for the most part, and so it makes sense Adventure's rated this high. But if we're combining skill floor and ceiling, which is what we're doing here, then Lifeweaver, probably overrated. I mean, it's definitely gotten better, but definitely overrated. Definitely overrated. Harder than people think, but not nearly as hard as the Lifeweaver players think. Like, I don't think I would put Lifeweaver significantly above, say, Juno. I think skill floor of Juno is higher. I think the skill ceiling of Lifeweaver is higher, though. So I think there's more things that you can do with Lifeweaver, I think, at the top. But so I will give Lifeweaver credit for that. But I would put Lifeweaver a step or 2 above Juno, I think. Lifeweaver just has more kit tools to work with the damage output that he now has. So damage actually matters. So like utilizing different aspects of your kit is more rewarding. So yeah, Lifeweaver deserves to be medium-ish, but not this high. Not this high. Pharah. Yeah, they buffed the needles, the weapon swap. There's all sorts of crap they did, yeah. I actually think Pharah's fine. Yeah, Pharah feels okay. Pretty difficult character to pick up. Pretty difficult to execute with well. And if you disagree, I highly encourage you to spend some time with 225 HP Pharah now. It's hard. There's a lot of things you can do with her, but it's hard. Not just because it's hard because, she's undertuned. I think she's pretty balanced right now, but you gotta be good. I think she's good. She's not in the top echelons of DPS, but she's like one step out. Yeah, Lucio's definitely too low. Lucio's definitely too low. This is probably a misunderstanding of how the character can be played, where you can just sit behind your team and heal bot. No, you just can't. You can't do that with Lucio. You just can't. Even Kiriko or Juno can do that better than you. You have to take risks. You have to do things. And 225 HP, it's hard. I would say medium underrated, like not even minor. Like he needs to go up like 5-6 steps maybe. He is both difficult floor and ceiling. Yeah. Sombra. Maybe fair. Floor is really hard. Ceiling's not as much as some of the other characters. Just because there's just not as many dynamics to her kit mechanically. But I think Sombra's pretty fair. I think comparatively, like saying that there's like 10 more characters that are more difficult, both floor and ceiling, than Sombra sounds like a good number to me. She's not easy though. Like there's a big difference in terms of the Sombra. Like even in OWCS right now, when you see her play in OWCS, you know when you got a good Sombra player, right? Not saying she's perfectly designed, not saying she's perfectly balanced, but in terms of like floor and ceiling, seems okay to me. BAP? No. BAP is not in the toilet for sure, floor or ceiling wise. His balance is just, his design just doesn't fit, but he is fairly, he's gonna get a medium arrow though. He's gonna be like a step above Lifeweaver, I would say. It isn't that complicated using BAP's kit. It just isn't. It's not complicated to use BAP's kit. The things that you can do with Lamp, I don't want to hear it. You can't do those things consistently. It's the same argument that like a Lifeweaver Venture would argue to say that they're top tier. You're not. You're shifting yourself. You're lamping yourself most of the time. It's all weapon play. Bob, not enjoying the toilet story? Yeah. So I'd say BAP is definitely probably a slightly above average difficulty support for sure, ignoring the strength of the character, but both, yeah. Ana's fair. Yeah, honest fair. Honest fair. Definitely in the top tiers, the bottom of the top tier, I'd say, in terms of difficulty for floor and ceiling. Yep. She might be more overtuned. She might be more consistent to get value out of, but in terms of the basics of the kit, floor and ceiling, yeah. The Lucio arrow is blue because it's going up. I screwed up my color coding last one. Winston way too high. Okay, Nodlin. I don't know, man. I just don't feel right. I don't know, man. You're telling me there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 7 or 8 characters that are harder than Winston? It's both floor and ceiling? I don't know, man. I think maybe baby up. All right, I'm gonna let my personal bias in here because I've coached a lot of low rank Winston and how much harder it is to get lower rank Winstons to like get value or to understand how you take space, and then high rank Winston. I will say small up. Small up. Don't shoot me. Just small up. Because we're going to be bringing some of these guys down too as well. So, oh man, if we're bringing people down, everything's relative. It's like maybe Lucio doesn't need to go up because other people will be going down. You get what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe Winston doesn't need to go up because other people are going down. Okay, we'll do it. We'll just leave it for now. You get the spirit. Hanzo. No, Hanzo gets a medium down. I understand the mechanical demands. I understand the character's undertuned, but in terms of floor and ceiling, very, very simple kit. Very simple kit. Yeah, he is mechanically demanding, and the floor is relatively high. Let's be honest here. It is, you hit your shots, or you don't freaking do anything. But I would say medium down. You guys got to remember, this is floor and ceiling combined, right? If it's a ceiling, he'd be way lower. I don't think Hanzo's easy though. Hazard tiny down. Yep, I'd agree. By far the most complicated quote unquote brawl tank we have. Harder than Diva for sure. Harder than Orisa, Remacha, Reinhardt, and definitely not doesn't probably deserve to be up here. Again, like, what do we bring Hazard down or do we bring Winston up? I don't know. Yeah, factoring current balance in seems fair. True. Yeah, so we're kind of, this is just more anecdotal. Like, it's absolutely true that they could be factoring current balance. That's true. You say Hazard's harder than Winston. I don't know if I'd say that, but that is a bit of like, that's a bit of my old boomer head, you know, where it's like, oh, Winston, the best, you know, you might be right. So either way, it needs to be a conversation. Echo definitely overrated. I think Echo's freaking weak right now, to be fair, but I don't think Echo's kit is that complicated. I think her positioning is relatively difficult. I do think that her ultimate has a pretty decent skill ceiling, and her skill floor, because she's so fragile, is really bad. But I think Echo is more of, you can definitely see the balance bias creeping in here. I think she's a small arrow down, right? I'd put her like somewhere here. You get what I'm saying? Or maybe even here. She's just not very strong. So I'm changing it to be less about balance right now. But her kit complexity from a floor and ceiling is just so much lower than something like a Sombra or a Winston or a Genji even. Ult though, yeah, I get the argument for the ult, but no, not even the best Echo players master every character on the roster. That's just more of a theoretical value. That's just unreasonable. If you were a character, where would you be in this list in terms of how difficult I am? 4.7. Doom? Okay, so here's Doomfist. So this is spicy though. This is spicy. This is the spice, okay? I am very close to giving Doom the check mark here. Let me give you an example why. When I did the skill ceiling tier list, I think Doomfist was like, he was not in the top 5 or 6. I think he was like an A tier. He was a little bit lower than people wanted him to be. But picking up the skill floor of the character, I think he's underrated with how difficult he is to pick up. I think he's more punishing to pick up than some of the other characters on this list. Like you just die. Like you just die. So if we're factoring in skill floor here, like how much you need to put into it, and I think maybe Doomfist small arrow down, but not near as much as I think people might think. Same argument for Winston? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, again, I think this one, we're getting really into the weeds here. I think this is far from objective, you know. Genji, same thing. I think probably fair. I'm gonna cut my face cam out of the way so you guys can see something pretty for once. Widow, I actually agree with here, I think. Because again, the same argument as Doomfist. I think skill ceiling is probably a little bit lower than some of these guys. But a bad Widow just does nothing, you know, so just terrible, you know. It's the same thing as Doomfist. Like, you just literally die or do nothing, you know. Maybe we bring her down a little bit, but there's just so many toxic maps to Widowmaker now. Wrecking Ball is fair. Tracer's fair. I would probably, I don't know, would you guys put Wrecking Ball over Tracer? I think Wrecking Ball's ult gives him so much value though, so I'd probably keep them about the same. Because Tracer's ult's a lot harder than Wrecking Ball's, and so like the floor of Mines is just insanely low. Mines is just so incredibly consistent, but I think the movement of Tracer is just more consistent for easier. Is Tracer really a 4.9? I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, what else would you rate a 5? You know, if it's not Ball or Tracer, what's it gonna be, you know? For floor and ceiling. Like, there's a reason, guys, like, I don't think you guys understand how difficult Tracer can be to pick up for the average player. So I work with a lot of high-level Tracer players, Masters, Grandmaster, and whatever, right? But I also work with a lot of Silver, Gold, Plat, whatever Tracer players as well. So a lot of them private, some of them not. And it takes people hundreds of hours to just pick the basic and get the basic movement text down. And the same thing goes with characters like Wrecking Ball and so on. It's not easy. And these aren't even people that are brand new to Overwatch. These are people that have like played the game for a while. They're like Plat Ana mains, or, you know, they played Cassidy and now they're trying to pick up Tracer. And then at the ceiling, it's the same thing, right? Like, I mean, the freaking people have had Tracer specialists in professional Overwatch for 7 years, right? Like, it's more common nowadays because she's been so relevant for so long, but people would sign players to be Tracer specialists, not just because it was useful to have a character that's been consistently very strong and relevant in professional meta, but because you couldn't just have your really good DPS player learn Tracer over the summer. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. I mean, Shax is a great example, right? Within the freaking London Spitfire, right? You've had people build results off of being Tracer specialists because the character is just so inaccessible for so many people. Ball has the highest floor in the game. Yeah, maybe we'd swap between the two. I'm not sure. Ball wins on floor. Okay, so you'd swap those two? Yeah, fair. I'm sorry, Rag. I'm gonna make you take a Tracer OTP account sometime and just grind it to Masters, Rag. Easier to survive doesn't mean all that much though. Like, living, it's value. You provide value. You die in Tracer a lot, but you may win games. If Ball lives, he might still lose the game, you know? But yeah, I think Lucio's underrated. Yeah, I don't know. Chat, what were the patterns here? I think Tech was talking about like characters that are easier to counter can be overrated in terms of their difficulty. But remember, we're not talking about winning necessarily. We're talking about just the theoretical value regardless of their current balance state. The niche OTPs overrate their character. Yeah. Yeah, that's true, because you look at something like, you know, a Lucio or Winston, Sigma, Brigitte. Those aren't exactly niche characters. They've been really relevant at times past. Yeah, cloudy playstyle is hard, but everything is hard when done at the very highest level. And a lot of it's because Rhine is also not very good, so you have to squeeze every ounce of juice out of character. I don't think Orisa is a niche character, though. You know, I don't think Orisa is a very niche OTP, you know? Picking 5 of your characters makes your skill floor considerably less threatening. I would agree with that to an extent. I'm very flattered by that comment as well, so thank you. But I still think you have to put the time in. You know, like, you have to put in a lot of time in. There's a lot more mains that are delusionally overrated than here's difficulty.
On Tracer, but what about the crazy stuff you have to be able to pull off to play like a top 500 Junkrat?
So that's value ceiling, not skill ceiling.
Pretty high.
So the reason when we did our skill ceiling tier list a while ago, the reason that we have to differentiate between skill ceiling and value ceiling is skill ceiling is something that is objective, value ceiling is subjective. So in terms of, or I guess maybe the other way around. So value ceiling is like just how strong is the character, right? And you just need to check the top 500 leaderboards basically to find out if that's the case. It's more of a balanced state. Whereas the skill ceiling is, like, let me put it this way. If you made cut Tracer's damage in half, that would have zero effect on her skill ceiling. It would just be impossible to win games with her. The theoretical optimal way to play Tracer would remain the same, but you just wouldn't win a single game. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't affect her skill ceiling. A Junkrat player has to play at his skill ceiling to win games because Junkrat is not a very strong character at the highest level. But that does not make, it means that you're more likely to see the skill ceiling out of the character, but it doesn't make the skill ceiling more impressive than other characters. So you're more likely to see characters in higher ranks that have higher values when you put the time in. For example, you will see, this is a great example of this, is you will see a lot of Tracer in the top 50 in DPS, but the gap between a person like Sugarfree or Proper on Tracer and the 50th ranked Tracer is monumental. Do you kind of see what I'm saying? Like, Tracer is very valuable if you're really good at her. And so the 50th ranked Tracer has put in thousands of hours and is really good at the character, but there's still like layers upon layers upon layers upon layers that they haven't received. And the only reason that they're there is because Tracer's a really strong character if you're really good at them. And I even see some people in chat still underrating character like Winston, for example, because, oh, Winston's strong. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The difference of what you can squeeze out of that character is monumental compared to some of the other tanks. Now he might still be a little overrated, right? I'm not, but if you think it's wildly overrated, then I think you're just wrong. And I don't think Winston's floor is simplistic by any means. Did we see Sojourn? So they forgot Sojourn in here. So they said that there was like a 2.75 or whatever. They forgot in the graph, which I think Sojourn's probably a little bit underrated. I think she's just overtuned. I would have expected to see Sojourn right around here, you know, somewhere around here. So anyway, your mileage may vary. This is kind of combining both skill floor and skill ceiling, which is a really tricky thing to do. But yeah, good stuff. This is very insightful. I think for the most part, people were pretty good, pretty good. Let's read the comments here. Yeah, Brigmane's getting caught off for being too humble. Yeah. Widowmaker harder than Genji. Yeah, but see, this is where I think it bleeds into like the skill floor thing. Like you absolutely can kind of dribble on your keyboard and like bronze, silver, gold and get value out of Blade. Like the understanding of what you need to do with Blade, you don't have to master every single aspect for the skill floor. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of a blurry line. Yeah, honestly, r/Overwatch is I think got some good takes here. Dude, our community is like getting smart, man. Look at this. I mean, not everyone's agreeing with me perfectly by any means, but there's like they make some good points here. Yeah, these are some nice takes. Yeah. Ay.